and welcome to this week's episode of the DW podcast. I am joined by Grace Maxwell and Edwyn Collins. Thanks so much for coming on.
Yeah.
Pleasure.
How are you getting on? I believe that you're enjoying yourselves up in the Highlands at the moment.
Yeah, I am.
Living quietly, living peacefully. We're very lucky.
Except Grace is too much shopping and the golf and.
I've been playing a bit of golf.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, since the course was open again, we've got a 9-hole community course here in
Victorian.
So 1895.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
And I'm the secretary.
Yeah.
It's brilliant. It's a great course, and we've just recently managed to get the funding for a really fantastic fairway moor. This is really boring, but it's what a difference, what a transformation it's made. So we're been out. I'm a very, very poor golfer. My dad and my brother David, who you know, Derek.
I do, yes, very well.
We're great golfers. David's fantastic golfer.
Yeah.
He's a very modest golfer.
He's he's up playing golf recently, David.
He did the tour because we're surrounded by magnificent courses up here, but our wee modest 9-hole course is looking well.
It's funny. It seems that you went from a London lifestyle to very much relaxed in the Highlands. It must be a total opposite, polar opposites.
Grace wanted that.
Are you saying that you didn't, Edwyn?
No, I did, but Grace built me a studio.
Brilliant.
He wouldn't do it unless he had the studio. I had to build him a studio.
But it's amazing, Derek.
That was probably the biggest undertaking of my life.
I know. It was.
But it was worth it in the end,
yeah.
Isn't it? And it's great, and people can come and record here in Helensdale now, and they do. Not much this year, obviously, but they do, and it's an incredibly beautiful setting that the studio is in, and just above us here, we're on the A9, and the studio's set on the hill behind us, and 100 steps Edwyn climbs every day to get to his studio. But it's brilliant, isn't it? It is different to London, Derek, but it's actually not less busy. I feel in some ways I'm busier here than I was in London.
It's funny you say that, Grace, because as you know, my family are down in Brora, just down the road from you, and it seems that they came from just outside Glasgow and moved up there, and I think that the communities that you live in, they're really integrated into that community, and you are the same, and there's always something happening, isn't there?
Yes.
But my grandfather was born there in Helensdale.
Really?
So that's a connection.
The connection.
Right, okay.
Edwyn's maternal family are all from this very house that we're sitting in at the moment. Edwyn's, how long has your family lived here?
200 years.
200 years.
Honestly, yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah.
It is amazing. And we know
great grandfather.
All the greats.
Yeah.
In fact, this lady behind us in this painting.
It's Bannerman.
Her maiden name was Bannerman.
Yeah.
But she's here. Let me think about it, Ed. And she's
great.
That's it. 2 greats.
Grandma.
Is Edwyn's great granny. Amazing.
That's amazing.
Over. Some local artist did it all those years ago, and so it's unusual for somebody from a wee modest house like this to have a portrait. You know what I mean? But it was apparently a local artist. And when we took the house over, we found it in the cupboard, and it was damaged. A hole in it.
Yeah.
And Edwyn got it sorted out. So there's Mary Bannerman right behind us there.
That's a lovely story, isn't it? That's fantastic.
No, and it's by the fireplace.
Oh, she's at the old range.
Yeah.
She's sitting by the old range.
Yeah. Here.
Yeah, so you've been coming here since you were
8 years old.
Yeah, you were 8. And the first time you were here. And Ollie's childhood, don't you?
Yeah.
You brought me here for the first time.
Grandpa was still alive, but Grace welcomed. No, Grandpa welcomed him.
Oh, she certainly did.
Yeah.
I was kind of transformed the first time I came to Helmsdale in 85.
Yeah.
And with his grandfather sitting in this room, gosh, and he took us out on the hill or the shore every day, long days. I thought he was putting me through the Duke of Edinburgh Awards. Derek, I'm from Lanarkshire, you know. I didn't. All this wild openness. It was new to me. In 1985, it was really new, and I would be thinking, where are we going? We're not going up that, are we? I don't see how you get up that. I don't understand. How do you do that? What do you know what I mean? And this Edwyn's grandfather was 83 at that point. So I thought, just
putting you through your paces at that
age. Just calm down, get on with it, because if this man can do it, you can do it. Do you know what I mean? It was amazing to me. It was a revelation in my life, really. But Edwyn had been.
A lot of in place.
You've been doing that all your life.
Yeah.
Tell Derek when your mum and dad one year said they might go abroad. What did you say?
No way, we'll see.
Edwyn said, you can go wherever you like. I'm going to Helmsdale.
That's amazing. I suppose it's always had a special place in your heart then as well, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has, but for example, when I was a small boy, I used to go out and walking and carrying on.
It's where a lot of you already were a nature lover.
Yeah.
But this is perfect for it, wasn't it? This was a way.
Lots of birds and animals and such like.
Edwyn's grandfather used to say in a letter that he'd written, he said, "Of course, we always defer to Edwyn in such matters."
Not anymore.
No, but your knowledge of wildlife.
Yeah, but it's true. I must admit, it's coming back, the animals and birds. And
Edwyn doesn't trust his memory.
Yeah.
Or his expertise as much.
Yeah.
Since his stroke, but in actual fact, when he's presented with something, he always remembers it. So I don't know why. When he sees something, I'll go, "Oh, what's that?" And he'll go, "Oh, hang on." He'll go, "Oh, hang on. There's a tree creeper," or something like that.
Yeah. Up 2 miles. A
mile north.
Yeah. Tree creeper.
So he always still notices things. I'll go, "Look, there's a curlew," and he goes,
"One of
not a curlew, but wait a minute, just let me think."
A whimbrel.
It's a whimbrel.
That's amazing.
So he's still
observant.
But you said that your knowledge of British birds was at its peak. You were completely knew everything when you were about 11. You reckon there was nothing you didn't know about British birds? Is that right? That was your peak time. 11.
I mean the birds that fly and not the other type.
Yeah,
no.
Rubbish at that.
Still on.
Grace, you mentioned earlier that you were originally from Lanarkshire, but I believe as things took you moved to London quite early on in your life.
Well, I went to. I was fascinated watching the podcast that you did with Graham Armstrong, and I've read his book subsequently, which is all about our neck of the woods in Lanarkshire. And of course, I'm trying to sort of contrast that with my experience of Lanarkshire in the 1970s.
Sure.
And I went to university when I was quite young, 17. And that was in 1975. And to be honest with you, I'm reading Graham's thing and thinking, where was my head at that age when I was 17? I'll tell you where it was, where it had been for quite a while, Derek. And this is not fair, because I'm so fond of Lanarkshire now, going back when I see it and all the years, my family are there. And it's where I grew up, so there's love in my heart for it, obviously. But when I was 17 and leading up to that, I was a kid with but a single thought in my head, which was to get out. I really was, I was get out, you know, the quickest, the earliest opportunity, the quickest route. And the quickest route, to my mind, honestly, was to get to university, because you would get a grant, you know, then, and you could fend for yourself. You could have a grant and a job, part-time work, and you could make it in the 70s. You really could, you know, without the financial assistance.
Nowadays,
no,
difficult.
Really difficult nowadays.
Yeah.
But without financial help from a family who couldn't afford, I was the oldest of four. Yeah. So off I went to Glasgow University, and then in 1980, 5 years later, after I'd worked in the theatre in Glasgow, I moved to London. Yeah. And I was working in theatres in London as well. So at the front of house, I was a house manager.
Okay.
And a friend of mine in Glasgow had quite a well-known fanzine at the time. Fanzines were very big at that time. Called the Ten Commandments. Music fanzine.
Yeah.
Called the Ten Commandments.
Yeah.
It was three of them had this fanzine, and Kirsty said, "There's this group, Orange Juice and Postcard," which I'd heard of them actually, because at that time I lived with a photographer called Harry Papadopoulos, who took lots of pictures in Glasgow, and he'd
black and white,
worked for the NME and Sounds. And Kirsty said,
mostly black and white, wasn't it?
Harry's picture.
Yeah.
She said, "Can these two guys come and
crash out,
sleep on your floor?"
Yeah.
They're coming down to promote their label and the band, and that was Orange Juice. And that was how I met Edwyn and Alan Horn, who started the label with Edwyn. And we came down and stayed for a few days as they were. Yeah. So you can tell Derek about your. So I'd only actually been in London for about 3 months at that point.
Around the time, was Pulling and Laughing, February 1980. And the second single, Blue Boy, came out, and up to London, Alan Horn and I, to list NME and Sounds and record.
You went to Cosmopolitan?
Yeah, I did. And I got a magazine called Cosmopolitan, and
they reviewed the record and talked about it, didn't they?
Yeah.
So they had this. Tell what your method was for organising how to try and get some interest in your. How did you do it?
Harry Papa. It's a big house.
Yeah, but how did you go to the? What did you do when you hit up?
I walked.
Yeah.
Alan Horn walked.
You walked into town.
5 miles away.
You did about 10 miles that day of marching, didn't you? And they would. So they walked into town, and then they would just turn up at the music paper's door.
Yeah.
And say, "We are Orange Juice, and this label's Postcard Records of Scotland, and we'd like to speak to who's around." You know what I mean? And they would
whatever.
You spoke to people, and every place they went to, it worked. It's amazing. And then you doorstepped John Peel at the BBC, didn't you?
Yeah.
And he spoke about them on the radio that night.
That's amazing.
And he said on air, "I met a truculent young man."
A truculent young man.
Alan Horn.
Yeah. A truculent youth.
That's unbelievable.
It's 12 people about this.
On air, he said. 10 o'clock, he said.
You had the label was completely self-funded, at that point self-distributed. They didn't have distribution.
Yeah.
Even indie distribution they didn't have. So the first single, what did you do? So you took it round the shops in back of Alan's dad's motor, didn't you?
Yeah. Austin.
Oh, it was I'm Rosslyn Maxie.
Yeah.
Wasn't it?
Yeah.
And was it?
Yeah.
Anyway, they took it round the country in the back of a motor, and sometimes some would take one or two.
Distributed one time in London, 100.
Was that Small Wonder?
Yeah.
Where was that? In Haringey up that way?
Yeah.
So as we indie shop called. They knew all the names of the
distributors
of the record shops.
Yeah.
How did you get them? From the back of the music papers or something?
Yeah, and he's nice, Small Wonder. Bit of a hippie, long hair. And you're mad, he said. But I tell you what.
I'll take a ton. I'll take a ton. And you were off. But I kind of talk to people about this a lot, Derek, about how do you get started in the music business?
Yeah.
You know? Well, back then, they had no labels, they had no nothing. They had nothing, no money, no labels, no publicity people, no nothing. Right? No distribution, no internet, nothing. Right?
Yeah.
The stranglehold that major labels and radio stations, of which there were not that many,
sure,
and music papers had on the music business was total.
Yeah. Back in the day, the majors.
So how did you crack that?
I don't know.
You cracked it.
Yeah.
You did crack it.
Yeah.
And I mean, I sort of say this to people who go, you just, if you find yourself, you don't have answers to that question, right? How do you crack it? Then don't bother, you just forget it, then go and do something else, because that is, you will have to find an answer to that, and it will not be easy.
Yeah.
And it will not be easy.
Back then in the Orange Juice days, Alan and I walked. He said, Alan said, he's stimmy.
He's shy.
Shy. And I talked incessantly.
But Alan could come across as just being intimidating.
It
was actually shyness.
Yeah.
It could come across as sort of, you're pathetic. You know what I mean? It was quite an interesting double act.
But back in between, say, NME, I talked.
You did all the talking?
Yeah. I did.
You were a good talker.
No, but I was... I talked using my point, but I was terribly shy.
Yeah. It sort of helps when you're a double act, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You know? And Edwyn says, back when I was young, I was a combination of shy and arrogant.
And you know, it's just a totally different world now, isn't it? You consider that, you know, that you say you cracked it, but it was hard work, Edwyn. You know, it wasn't as if.
Oh yeah.
You
I did it, Derek.
What was you said? He said, I used to lie in my bed at night and not be able to sleep for trying to come up with ideas. Not for music, because music ideas came to Edwyn quite easily.
Sure.
Yeah.
Didn't they?
Yeah.
Still do.
Yeah.
But
thinking of the advertising that I did, thinking of sharp, witty.
Yeah. How to get attention. How to get attention.
Yeah.
And of course, the first rule of that for you lot was don't be boring. Don't bore people. Who said that? Don't bore us, get to the chorus. Who's that?
The you got the look. You got the look.
Did they sing that? Did they actually say that? Don't bore us, get to the chorus. Do they?
I don't know.
Anyway.
Treat them good.
But they just weren't bored. Trust me, they were not boring. They were riveting sort of individuals with absolutely loads of ideas, tons of opinions, sometimes quite cruel opinions about people. Were,
especially Alan.
Especially you.
Don't try and pass the blame there, Ed.
I admit, especially me.
You were
terrible.
I mean, because I had no responsibility for him then, and I just thought it was hilarious. I thought it was absolutely. You think, I don't believe he's, especially when you started to get some attention and when you were becoming a wee bit, well known, and you do this interview and I'd be reading it and going, oh my God, did he really just say that? and
but indie music is back and forward, especially the NME and sounds and melody
do you
maker.
Do you mean that
banter?
Yeah,
the banter.
Yeah, and groups weren't supportive of one another. Groups tore into each other back then. That was really. Oh
yeah.
God, yeah! There was
nowadays.
I love
friendly to each other.
Friendly.
The musicians.
No, you were defined by your negativity back then. Do you know what I mean by who you hated? And Edwyn, somebody sent us a thing about Edwyn reviewing. This is later on. You carried on like this for years. In 1987.
No, he goaded me, Alan Vaughan.
Well, who was goading you in 1987 whenever you reviewed the singles for that mag?
I know.
That wasn't Alan goading you.
You see, he's goading me.
That's not true. That's not true. So he wrote it. The first single he had to review was from Susie and the Banshees, right? And Edwyn goes, Susie is an evil Nazi who laughed at spastics. Come on, Live Aid generation. Let's boycott the old bag.
Oh my goodness.
I was nasty,
That was
Derek.
printed. You printed that in your music
I was
paper.
nasty, Derek. Yeah, I admit it.
That was kind of the way it was. Hell, ha ha ha! How we all laughed. Do you know what I mean? And it was like.
Was there any groups out there that
90 everybody is to each other nowadays? You know, kind of strange. You know.
Was there any groups out there that tried to have a pop at you or try to slate Orange?
Yeah, tons of them.
Yeah,
especially Orange Days and Solo back in the day. Tons of them.
Because people always assume that Orange Juice were just sort of lavished with critical praise. If when we were moving up here 5 years ago, the packing job to get us up here was just a nightmare. And one of the things I had to do at Edwyn's old studio was pull out the archives press. Now, it's a long career, you know.
Yeah.
And he's generated a lot of music paper press over the years.
30 years.
Some of it you didn't even want to keep. They just all land in your
40 years.
Land in my office, you know, just tons of it. And you would be just tipping it. I was ready. There was a lot of it.
40 years,
I was ready to tip it, a lot of it. So I was going through it to see what I was going to keep and what I was going to chuck. And you would not believe how much negative, how much of a slag off Orange Juice got.
Yeah.
All the singles, you know, all the albums. Alex Kapranos of Franz Ferdinand just loved this story about how when Rip It Up, the album came out, he got such a roasting in NME that Edwyn was so depressed he was refusing to get on his tour bus.
No way.
Alex was himself laughing at that. He's going, that's so something.
Pretentious or what?
No, he was going, that's just exactly how I would have felt. That's so cute. No, forget it all. Never bought. You know, you got because you weren't you weren't like impervious to criticism, Edwyn. Really.
No. Fuck on it, Derek.
You didn't like it?
No.
But I suppose that's normal, isn't it? Because you've put so much effort into writing these songs and you've poured your heart out to it, and then for someone to turn around and be so nasty about it is...
Yeah.
It's weird because you don't really care about... You don't care too much about praise either. It's a weird...
No, not nowadays I don't.
It's a weird one. I remember this guy coming in a dressing room to do an interview with Ed, and then he said, yeah, you're probably sick of all these sycophants. Probably find it, you know, you probably...
Before my strokes.
Years ago. So you probably find it quite refreshing to meet somebody like me who just gives it to you straight and tells you what I really think. Oh no, he said you probably don't like all these people just buttering you up because it was really used the word. And then Edwyn goes, no, he goes, no, what I like is blanket sycophancy, okay? Blanket sycophancy. That's a good expression. But when, I don't know, it was a funny thing. You had to be...
you have to be strong and...
take it on the chin.
Yeah, take it on the chin. And
you think that's nowadays? Do you think that's missing from the music industry, that everyone's too friendly? And
I don't know.
I think
but back in the... I'm talking about 80s. It's angry people and...
Mm-hmm. But it depends where you're looking, I suppose, you know. Suppose if you're looking at what kind of music you're looking at, really, you know. Because indie music's definitely like that. It's just so horrific, sort of people just will be, I suppose, mostly, not everybody, but mostly.
Yeah.
But if you look at Black British music, for instance, that's not, you know, they can, you know, you still people will go, oh, look at them trying to grab a headline with that controversial thing that they said. It's pretty easy to get a headline nowadays, you know what I mean? You don't need to go very far. People are like, and that's maybe why folk are a bit more hesitant as well, because you get destroyed, don't you, nowadays, for the least little
criticism.
Yeah, but you know, Edwyn, how you say, don't say that on Twitter or whatever.
No,
he tries to
nowadays, it's important. Don't go there, Derek.
He says to me all the time, I'm going, stay away from that subject on the internet, because you're just asking for all the mad shit to come down in your head, you know what I mean? And all the release
you want to be yourself, don't you? And you want to give your opinion, but I think you're right. People are ready to jump on you at any opportunity now, aren't they?
Yeah. You've got to be clear in your mind and really committed to your view.
Thoughts,
if you're going to express it nowadays, and you've got to be very clear about what your response is going to be, and you've got to also be ready to take
criticism.
But you know, because of the internet, Edwyn, it's a different kind of criticism. It's nastier and weirder, and it's weirder. In every way, you know. Every way it's weirder, you know. Pylons, you know, these pylon things that are just bloody hell. No, I don't think that's the point at which I think if I was experiencing any kind of misery or anxiety because of a pylon, that's the point where I'd just be going, delete account. It's not worth it. You know what I mean?
So, Edwyn, you put your first few singles out on Postcard, but then did you sing Polydor after that?
Yeah, I did. The album You Can't Hide Your Love Forever. I signed to Polydor. The major record companies, as opposed to the indies, and
you thought you needed it at that point to take Orange Juice to another level.
Even Daly, the drum player, thought I needed it.
He thought it was a good. You thought you needed to do that.
But I was 50-50, Derek. I think indies and majors. I'm not sure.
But what you did do, which is really unusual at the time, and I only learned about this.
Stephen Daly sorted it out.
The drummer and your lawyer.
Yes. Paul Rodwell.
And they did a...
Paul Rodwell.
They took a lot less money and a lot less investment.
Yeah.
So that they could retain, in the long term, they would retain the ownership of the Orange Juice catalogue.
Right. Okay.
And the catalogue reverted to the group many, many years ago, decades ago. Sure. And so during this time when we're getting elderly and people there's been a sort of renewed interest in orange juice, you know, in the last 15 years or something like that.
Especially young people.
The great thing is that the members of Orange Juice own those records.
Yeah.
Which is really unusual for that time, that 80s, 90s period.
Yeah. Anything to do with it's certainly ahead of its time, isn't it? Because you hear so many stories now of you know, bands getting mucked over by the record labels because they don't have the rights to their own songs, you know.
It's a big subject, especially a big subject nowadays with the new ways that people receive music, they access music, you know. And to my way of thinking, if we did things like Spotify back in the days of Orange Juice, Edwyn and Postcard would have utilised it. They'd have been really imaginative the way they'd have utilised the internet, and they'd have utilised streaming services and stuff like that.
The problem was back in the early days, I'm talking about 1980, papers is NME, Sounds, Record Winner, and Melody Maker. Which was
and then you had
weeklies.
Radio 1, seriously, and a few television programmes like Bill Grey Whistle Test or something, and it was really, really. And you had to get into a major distribution system in order for shops to even carry your records.
Correct.
And it was very restricted. Whereas now, if you do the work, you do the hard work yourself, and you do it imaginatively, there is a good chance you could get your own thing going and not need any of these monolithic institutions to help you. If you put the work in, the elbow grease in, and you've got enough going for you, you know, music-wise and imagination-wise, you can totally do it yourself. I'm always telling young people to do this. Don't get near them, especially when somebody dangles a contract in front of you.
And a carrot.
A carrot. Well, you don't get any carrots anymore, Ed, and that's the problem. At least back in our days, they would be £100,000 record deals, and that's in the 80s. That would be your advance, some of them, in the 80s. That's
Roddy Fame has a camera. There's a small record label called Postcard Records.
He went to
Asset camera. Joseph Kay and the Goldbatines in Australian group and Orange Juice. Strictly indie, and Roddy signed.
Roddy's decision with Warner's was a good decision. Warner's and Roddy had a fruitful relationship for
many years,
12 years, something like that. Do you know what I mean? It was a long time, and people going into these things with their eyes wide open. But nowadays, you don't get anything really in return.
No.
The majors don't give you massive advances. They don't give you. You don't even get that
money.
That lifestyle you used to get in the 80s and the 90s.
The money is gone.
You don't get to live high in the hog for a few years.
What's going on?
But they still want to keep all your rights in perpetuity. You know that word, that expression they use, which means forever and ever and ever and ever. For what? For what? You don't even get to behave like a twat for 5 years or whatever. And at least give you that. Do you know what I mean? At least give you the means to go mental. No, there's none of that. They still expect you nowadays to sign these crazy. They call them
contracts,
360 deals, which means that they get your there's the recording, your publishing. They want a bit of your merch. They want a bit of your
everything,
touring income, whatever, everything. And
nowadays,
and they still expect you to do your own. I know. They still expect you to do your own social media work. You know what I mean? And make yourself famous. Don't touch them. That's my view. Don't get near them. Starve them. Anyway.
Grace, when did you become Edwyn's manager then? Because that must have been an interesting one for you. Because obviously you've got a personal relationship there.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Correct, Edwyn.
Yeah.
So I'd known Edwyn for 4 years by the time I started working for him, just about. And as I said, I worked in theatres. I was a front of house manager in 2 theatres in London. I did other things as well, but that was my 2 main jobs that I did. And we'd been friendly on and off through those 4 years. Sometimes we wouldn't see him for the ages because he'd be away being a big pop star and having rip it up and stuff. But I'd bump into him from time to time, you know, and I was sort of where was I at the time? I'd come back to Kensal Rise,
Yeah.
and you were living in my old house, with Harry, the photographer, my ex years before it, and this other photographer, and they were living up the road.
Harry and Robert Sharp.
Yeah. And Edwyn used to come down and see me quite a lot, so saw him a lot more then, and then he split up with his manager. In actual fact, he's been split with your manager a few months.
Yeah.
And he said, "Would you be interested? He goes, would you leave your job and be the orange juice manager?"
Yeah.
I thought, yeah, what self-employment? Here I come.
You're beauty.
So that was that. That's what I did. And then about a year later, after about a year of working with one another, we ended up together. Just because we were in each other's company all day, every day. Do you know, it was just...
I'm sure it was more romantic than that, Grace.
It wasn't. It really wasn't.
It was for me.
It was maybe for him. It wasn't. I was just like, yeah, all right. I know. Well, carried on, and but I don't even. I lived in I had my own. I was in a housing co-op, and I had my own wee 1-bedroom flat in Kensal Rise, and I don't remember Edwyn moving in, or discussion about us living together. We just moved all his stuff in one bit at a time. Before
I noticed.
He said, "You used to be a minimalist." I was, but I didn't have much stuff. That was the thing. I was always moving before that, so I used to think if you have stuff, it's just a pain in the neck moving, you know. So my mate Marco used to be able to move me everything one trip back of his motor.
Yeah.
And then Edwyn moved in with me, and it was just tons of stuff everywhere. So much of his gear. But he also had so many clothes back then. He had... Remember that?
Yeah.
Do you remember how many clothes he had?
I don't. Second-hand clothes.
He was a big charity shopper, but he had amazing things. He had 15 suits.
Yeah.
All from
how did you decide what one to wear?
Oh, he was no problem with that. He took a lot of trouble over his appearance, Derek. Trust me.
I sent them to the dry cleaners, Derek.
And he had
the suits.
So you get them in charity shops. Charity shopping for old classic 40s, 50s suits was really
trendy,
really good then. And he had shoes, old men's shoes. He had amazing gear. But you used to take them to this old tailor, didn't you?
Yeah.
What was his
take
name?
Them in, I don't know, Greek guy, Derek.
Right.
And he would adjust them for you.
Yeah.
So he had all these suits for not very much money. Do you know what I mean?
£5.
He's very, very assiduous about checking out charity shops.
£6 and
I once pulled them all out and I laundered them all and ironed, and I swear to God, he had 30 white shirts, vintage white shirts. They were all from Jermyn Street and Savile Row, and all these names on. Beautiful. But he had 30 of them. I mean, it's ridiculous,
Taking over your flat, Grace.
Yeah, I know, and he had old Crombie coat. Remember that one?
Yeah.
And you had that beautiful camel coat.
Yeah.
And another one that had like a check on it.
Mothballs.
Then you get there's a terrible problem with moths in London, so a lot of these things get eaten by the moths.
Yeah.
That's terrible.
I know, it's quite sad. It's quite sad, but I'm just, in a way, I'm really glad I still don't have all those clothes. But part of me is very relieved I'm not carting them all around.
So you weren't just his manager, you were also his wardrobe as well. He was taking over the house.
Yeah, kind of. Not.
No, I did it.
You did it, yeah.
The dry cleaning. Most of the time it was me, and some of the time it was Grace.
Yeah, mostly that. He was so footery about all that stuff, so I kept out of his road. That and his hair, his quiff. Oh God.
How long did it take you to do that in the morning, Ed?
Jeez.
A full hour.
And if it went wrong, he'd be sitting there swearing in front of the mirror, and he'd start it all over again, and I'd just want to go.
Behave yourself.
It had this sort of reverse effect to me. I used to try and set myself these goals, like get up, have a shower, get dressed, put your makeup on, out the door 15 minutes, right? And I'd be going like 15 minutes, I'll make up, shower, here, out the door, right? 15 minutes I can do this in, do you know what I mean? And he'd be making us late. He'd actually make us late for everything.
Not anymore.
No, with his
pooping around.
Stuff.
Sorry. Decorum.
See, you're not allowed to say these things anymore,
No.
Edwyn, which is nuts. But it was just ridiculously absorbed in his.
Oh God.
Oh, it's another thing I don't really miss. To be fair, I don't really miss that. To be fair.
Was it around about that time that you went solo then, Ed? Was it?
1988? Five.
It was the end of Polydor, the end of Orange Juice, and start the solo attempt.
Yeah.
But it was very hard, wasn't it? We struggled.
No, yeah, it struggled away.
At that point, we didn't really know what any kind of independent alternative could be for us, because the independent thing had morphed into a different thing, where so-called pseudo-indies, we call them, so they were actually backed by majors, and they had an independent name on them.
Yeah.
And a sort of real independent distribution, it was almost disappearing, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But anyway, Aaron couldn't get arrested. This is the reality of it. He could not get arrested for
love of money.
A long time.
Yeah.
So, and we also didn't have a means to make records. So somebody would give you the chance to demo something.
Originally, 88, the album, I put it out in Cologne.
89 it was it?
Yeah.
89.
Yeah. In Germany.
Yeah. It's a long and tragic story of 4 years.
Demon Records. Open Despite Here, it's called.
Yeah, they licensed it.
Yeah.
But it's a very long and boring and tragic tale of music business rejection and poverty. And we were really skint, weren't we? We were super skint. And for years, and lots and lots of blind alleys we were going down, and lots of rejection. And at one point, I thought Edwyn should get a different manager. Maybe if he got a more high-powered manager, it would help. But that was rejected after that.
Yeah. We
dipped our toe in that water, and he couldn't handle it. He couldn't handle it. So we thought, okay, that's fine then. It's me or nothing. And
what made you Germany then? What made you take the decision to release it in Germany?
We were invited. We were invited by a label / studio boss, and Edwyn we went to see them in the springtime of '89. You know, he had his label. He just started the label, hadn't he?
Yeah.
I mean, he had this amazing studio, beautiful studio, didn't he?
Yeah.
And a house, so it's in a house, so there's a place to stay.
Yeah.
He brought the whole group. He brought all of Edwyn's group out here to record this album, Hope and Despair, and in Cologne. And you were there for about, all in all, sort of 3 months, weren't you?
Yeah.
And I remember I was driving transit vans with gear over Cologne. At one point we were really skint. I said to Ed, and I was going to get an HGV Class 1 and be a lorry driver. He could get another manager, and anyway, so because I always like driving. I like long distance driving.
You still do?
Still do. And I do. I I'd quite like to drive a tractor. Don't know if I could. Anyway, so the Cologne and the album got made, and it did well. It did all right by our standards. It did pretty well, but and so you were back on the on the road a wee bit again with your solo career, and you had another record in between, and we had William in between was born. And I always think, when William was born, I always think it was like good luck for you.
Yeah, I put it out. The 2 albums I did, but Hope and Despair. No, Gorgeous George.
Later on, that was the 3rd album, your 3rd solo album. But there's a good video, you can see it on. It's on YouTube, isn't it?
What do you mean?
The record after Hope and Despair was called Hell Bent on Compromise. and hilarious. And it's got this song on it called Everything and More, and we made a video for it with Will when he was 6 months old.
Online, can you see that?
Yes, it's in Cornwall, and he was kind of pretending that he was like a
space man,
a space baby. He was 6 months, right? He could not even really sit up properly for very long, and so our friend made him a spacesuit, and we'd like it was Blue Peter, wasn't it? We made him a sort of jetpack and a space helmet, and the idea sort of like crashed on this beach. Ridiculous, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just I don't know if we were just looking for an excuse to shove him in a video or something. I don't know, but it's online. Everything and More. Have a look at it. It's good.
That's brilliant.
And then, right, sorry, you tell them about how did we get to Gorgeous George?
Demon, 2 records, Demon Records put out, but I was not pleased. But
didn't like them.
Yeah, and Keith Collins, the manager, and the
this little label called
Danta.
Yeah. But by this time, a really important thing had happened. Around the turn of the 90s, Edwyn's focus was on, because as you keep hearing him saying, I didn't like that, and I wasn't happy with that, and it was like, so we were like that a bit. So the focus was on trying to get a studio.
I was a producer.
Yeah, produce your own records.
Yeah.
Have your own studio, and everything was going to be, we're going to try all our efforts focused on him having a studio, because that way we would never have to go to a record company again, like
the major record companies,
to ask,
please sir, could I have a new record,
please?
No.
Can I get access to a studio, please? So we just thought, we've got to stop that. We've got to seize the means of production, and we'll have to figure out how to get a studio, and that's not going to be easy given that we were completely skint. But we, that's Edwyn. That's the thing we were talking about at the beginning of this conversation. Is if you think it's going to be easy, it's not for you. Forget it. Yeah. It's going to be hard. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be impossibly difficult, in fact, So that's what we started to do. And again, that's a long and tragic tale of how we managed to get the first studio together. Oh my God. I remember Edwyn saying to me one point, so how much longer can we go? And I said,
Grace said.
I said 3 weeks ago.
Oh, no.
And Derek, Paul Coote's drumming.
Yeah, but you did have a studio. In a wee place.
Gorgeous George.
You shared it with a guy, and you pooled your equipment.
Yeah.
And you shared the time, and Edwyn was doing a bit of production work by that time. So we were thinking, well, what we can do is he can do a bit of producing and he gets paid for that, then that can fund his own records, come back into the podcast, goes back into the podcast.
Yeah.
And so we managed to get this place wired in.
Yeah.
And eventually it's in Alexandra Palace. It was nice, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And then eventually made the record.
I shared it with someone, Mark Thompson, but he said it.
Oh, so that didn't last, in other words, right? So it came to an end immediately the day after. He said,
"He's pretentious or what?"
This is on the internet.
He's not changed one bit.
No, he has not changed.
No, how about you? I would repeat.
Anyway, yeah, no, we're both as a bit of a liability, to be fair. But the record finished recording.
Yeah.
And the very next day we had to pack up our gear and get out because Mark wanted to go alone, which is fair enough, right?
I know, yeah.
And it turned out all right for us because you ended up working quite hard on a particular track off of that record called A Girl Like You. That's it. Overtook her life. But tell Derek how that came to be recorded. A Girl Like You.
Okay. 48 hours later, it's finished. A Girl Like You, and Grace said, I said, Grace is possibly a single, and
it's obviously a single.
Yeah, and I didn't realise Derek took off around the world.
No, we didn't think of it. We did. We said it was a single.
Around the world.
The way we always looked at records and go, what's the single? What single will we put out? Like that. Well, that's a single, in it. We'll put that. It wasn't because you didn't have hits at that point. We thought there was certain prerequisites you needed to have hits, and he hadn't any of them. Industry respect. Major backing, distribution in they used to call them scale outs in the shops, radio play to get none of this, right? No credibility, kind of this commercial credibility. So, but we thought we heard it and thought, and it was the very last thing he recorded on the album. It's the very last thing. Yeah, in a hurry at the tail end, and just weird. And also the other thing about it is that Edwyn normally he's quite a prolific writer, and especially back then, and he would normally hit the studio with the whole track virtually fully formed in his head. Yeah. But arrangements, everything.
But one song, two songs that actually I pre-formed Derek.
Mm-hmm. And one of them was A Girl Like You.
Yeah.
So it's unusual for him to make a thing up in the studio. He doesn't normally. It's not really. Not a real
bag.
He will do it sometimes, but no, it's not. It's a pretty rare thing for him to do that. Actually.
Yeah.
He's got it all figured out in his brain before he goes in normally, and that one wasn't it?
No.
So there you go.
When did you think this is really going to be massive here, or was there a?
It started it's a hit in actually Holland.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So
and then Belgium, Australia.
Yeah,
it was weird. It was weird. We put it out in the UK, and it wasn't a hit.
Belgium is number one. Yeah,
we put it out in the UK. It wasn't a hit. We released it as a single. It didn't get airplay. It didn't get scaled out to the shops. And it got to something like 40-something. It was 40-something, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Because it got a wee tiny bit of nighttime airplay or something like that. And but it went off, and it
took a tangent.
It went off on its own. Seriously, when you hear about things doing, like going viral. Now they call it going viral, you know, or whatever. But that was what happened. That's exactly what happened with the girl like you.
Yeah.
People would hear it and it would just they would ask for it again, and it just kept going. So when we put it out first in the UK and it was close but no cigar, I was thinking, oh well, never mind, never mind. But there was nothing really stopped. It never really stopped. Until we kept hearing about things. My phone was going an awful lot more every day and every week that passed.
Especially in the night time, Derek. USA.
Well, that was later on.
Europe.
Yeah, that was later on.
Yeah.
But that winter time going
the
through
faxes.
94.
You used to be faxes.
Faxes.
Faxes. You're showing your age now.
Well, there's 95. That 25 years ago, I didn't have a computer. Most people didn't have a computer. And I had a word processor and a fax machine. And which I'd only just got, actually.
Yeah.
And and a phone. And it was actually a combined phone fax. I don't know if you remember them. Like that, it was a phone and a fax and steam thing, you know. And, I was working off the living room floor of the wee flat.
And Hazel, my sister.
That was a wee bit later on. That was a wee bit later on. So it just momentum kept building.
Yeah.
Different countries, France. We went to Australia. We went to America.
Yeah.
We went to South by Southwest actually for the first time ever in America in March of 95, and I think it was only about 2 or 3 years old at that time.
Yeah.
So it was a much smaller event. It was really, really nice, wasn't it? It was good fun. We took William with us.
Yeah.
He came to Texas. That's the first place he ever landed in. He landed in Texas. Just wanted to go to a toy shop and get some. It's his birthday, remember?
Yeah.
Get some Power Rangers.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And then we went to New York, and you played a show in New York.
Yeah.
And it's the first of all these things were first for us. So it was fun. It was all kind of fun. But by the time we got to March, it was starting to
explode.
Yeah, it was getting crazy busy. And I was getting phone calls all the time. It's where's people. This was an indie label.
Yeah.
Who
called Setanta.
Had less experience of this than me, so they were. We ended up running it really ourselves, and servicing all these. We did do some licensing deals with labels abroad for it. So they would need a lot of stuff. They'd need a lot
major labels as well.
And they'd need a lot of
Sony and
but they would. So we would, instead of it going through like it usually does with these things, where one branch of a major talks to another country of a major, and they all do it. There's hundreds of people involved. It was just me and our Hazel, right? Hazel chucked her job and came to work for me in April of 95, and then that was it, wasn't it? Her and I were in the living room floor together for about a week, and then we took a little serviced office, and we had 2 phone lines and a separate fax machine. Yeah, 3 lines. It was amazing. It was a fight. God. And it was just, by that time, by the time Hazel joined me, it was getting daft. And like I say, there was requests coming in for things, planning, trying to schedule stuff, trying to supply all this stuff to people, and me and her. It was it was the two of us trying to figure it out, and Hazel was going, I don't even know any of these things. I don't know what they're talking about, and
she's just started.
The real baptism by fire for Hazel. Within 6 months, she was an absolute expert. It was a real deep end, and it was crazy. It was really, really crazy. And I picked Will up from school. He just started school, and I picked him up from school and bring him up to the wee office, and he'd have to just play with his Lego or something until the phones would be, because they'll go, no. It's all phone calls then. There's no rat-a-tat-tat like we do now,
Yeah.
Everything was physical. Everything was physical. So you just physically send artwork and physically send product and physically, deal with everything really.
Yeah.
And then I'd come home and I'd feed him something and put him in his bed, God love him. And then the phone calls with, like Edwyn said, would start from all over the world.
Yes.
At this point, I'm describing this as if he's not in the picture. He wasn't. He was away.
Yeah.
Away
in Europe and
all over the world. We ended up, didn't we?
Yeah.
So he was either way playing
Hong Kong, Singapore.
He was either away playing with the band,
Japan,
touring, or he was doing promotional trips.
Brilliant.
Sometimes me and Will would join him. Sometimes we wouldn't. He'd be off somebody else to do that. And it was, so we were knackered at our end, but you were pretty knackered out there, weren't you? And you're at your end. Because it was we had a
hit on our hands.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did. So we put it out again in the UK in the summertime, and it happened. And it was a big hit in America. And nuts, just nuts. But they would have you then, while you're riding something like that, they had Edwyn jumping through an awful lot of hoops, didn't they?
Yeah.
There were some of them that were just stupid, really, really stupid. For every good thing, there'd be 5 stupid things, wouldn't there? You learn about these things that they're, what's point,
the point is.
Yeah. How to say no, It was interesting time, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Out of control. Sometimes you just stop and go, is this really happening,
by the end of it, I was exhausted. Trust me.
There was nowhere in the world that wasn't successful, and at the end of it,
1 year and 6 months.
18 months.
Exhausting stuff.
Yeah, and so he was done in at the end of that. He was ready to
retire.
What we had, finally, was a bit of a budget to build his studio.
Yeah.
So where did you head? I'm doing all the talking here. I'm conscious of that. Please talk.
What?
I'm talking too much.
No, but...
Let you get a word in edgeways.
Where did I head?
No, what happened after all the work from A Girl Like You and Gorgeous George?
Oh, yeah. West East Yard.
West Heath Yard, your studio.
Yeah.
So we were able to find a permanent home.
Yeah. And a muse.
And Edwyn was there. It's a studio for the next 20 years.
Yeah.
So 95.
You recorded some amazing bands there as well, didn't you?
Yeah, really. Yeah. All sorts of things happened while we were at that studio.
Yeah, for example, New Fellows, The Cribs.
The New Fellows album.
The Proclaimers.
Really, yeah.
One of them.
Yeah, lots of things.
Black and white.
Just a long time, a lot of records.
Yeah.
But for you, it was really... you did another tour, went back to America in 2007. But after that, I really think Edwyn thought, I'm not bothered about this stuff. I want my studio. And that was where you were at.
Yeah.
And he had the freedom by that time, financial freedom, thanks to A Girl Like You, to concentrate on his studio life. And he created what he has now, which is this at that time, remember as well, we're still in the 90s.
Yeah.
And the whole world is going digital at this point. Everything is going, including studios. Yeah. And everybody was getting rid of their old
gear.
So what was your attitude to that?
Strictly analog. It's turned round. Hi.
Hi, Sandy. Can I join you in a wee while? We're talking to somebody on the internet. See you in a sec. But we're Sandy, he's a good friend from the village, and he helps me with stuff. Him and Will have been working together. They're a team.
Brilliant.
But what was I going to say? What were we
I
saying?
suppose I get it was totally life changing for you then.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was.
And it ultimately allowed you to do what you've always wanted and have your own studio and record amazing albums.
Good times. Good times.
It's true. All he ever wanted was
to be left alone.
Yeah. to complete
Potter about
freedom and his ability to do whatever he wanted musically. And in the studio, Edwyn came to being a producer in this, coming to understand studios and recorded sound out of necessity, because he no longer, like we said, that thing where he no longer wanted to have to beg to be allowed to make music.
Yeah.
But in so doing, this is around the turn of the 90s and starting to dive into the studio itself, the technical side of it, learning how to record, learning how to be a producer. He discovered the great passion of his life, and that was what it is. It's recorded sound, isn't it, Ed? And and what you can do with old gear, and it became a complete obsession. It still is, collecting this equipment. And it was a perfect time because people were getting rid of a lot of the things that he loved.
Analog, especially analog, as opposed to digital. As I say, digital is starting out.
And you were able to pick everything up for a song.
Even the microphones, digital.
Yeah, they were going digital, and you were able to get all your gear, like really, really bargains. Yeah. Folk were getting rid of it, and he was,
especially in America, actually.
He was like a demon. He was absolutely hoovering it up. So he had some dosh to do it with as well. So he was just like on a mission. And I wouldn't say that Edwyn had the idea that in the future people would change their minds and would want to go back to this stuff. But he just loved it.
So especially the dress analog nowadays.
And what was the other thing in the late 90s that kicked off that really helped you in America?
I don't know.
Passion to this day. It begins with an E and it ends with a Y. eBay.
Oh, yeah.
Are you a bit of an addict, Edwyn? eBay
I'd never heard of it. I'd never heard. This is 98.
Robert Sharp
introduced you to
yeah.
eBay, and Edwyn was going, so I can bypass all the dealers and I can get stuff from Americans.
Harry Papadopoulos' friend.
You discovered
Robert Hart.
So it was before there was an eBay UK or anything. Edwyn was
on the American one.
The American one, yeah. Americans were already pretty aware of it by 98.
But it was first started American, but tiny little Great Britain.
When it started, it was small in the UK. And even in 98, it was pretty established in America. It was getting there. It was really getting there. So he was an early adopter. And but particularly for things like that, it was where it was kind of like where everything found its natural value. And it was sort of for enthusiasts, particularly geared towards collectors and people that were enthusiasts. If you wanted motorbike parts or something like that, I mean, that was the place to get.
Like specialised almost,
Specialised. It was really like that then, wasn't it? Yeah. And a lot of people we knew when Edwyn was telling me he was getting stuff there, they were going, how can you trust it? And
the Great Britain. How can you trust it?
Yeah. And Edwyn said, well, it's the feedback thing. It's the feedback system.
I suppose at first people will be suspicious about these things that they don't know.
I know, they were.
Well, he just jumped in, and as a result of that, he got
bargains galore.
Bargains galore.
I like that.
He loves a bargain. He loves a bargain.
STC microphones, for example.
Bargains.
Nowadays, STC 60s and 70s expensive.
They're very expensive.
Yeah, nowadays. In eBay.
I think there's a reoccurring theme here, Edwyn, that's the bargains on the suits, the bargains on microphones and music.
He's such a bargain hunter. He's really, seriously, he'd like to know, I mean, ridiculous, you know. He likes to know the price of it. I mean, after Edwyn's illness, and he came out of hospital, and we put his laptop up and eBay up. I thought, let's see what he's like with eBay. And he was looking at guitars, searched vintage guitars, and thought that's familiar for him. And he was going, no. And I thought, what's wrong? And he goes, my bargains. Oh, God. And I thought, oh, wow. He's looking at the prices that things are going for. He's looking at the numbers.
Yeah.
And I didn't realise, I thought, because he lost the ability to read because of his stroke and write, I thought numbers were gone as well. But there he was, looking at eBay. And he was like,
too expensive.
I'm not paying that for it. You know what I mean? It's like, I thought, oh, wow. He's numerate. Do you know what I mean? He gets it all when he sees a price written down. It's like he totally knew, not just the, you know, the number value, but whether it was a good buy or not. Do you know what I mean? All that was still intact. I thought very important. All the important bits are still intact. In other words, you know.
It's amazing how much eBay's played such a big part in your life.
Actually, huge. It's been a huge. I mean, I never thought of that. It's been
but the BBC redundant stores and recording house.
Yeah, that was the other thing. So there's people.
But it's gone now.
No,
but
they're not doing it anymore.
Loads of bargains. STC and
the BBC had a
Austrian microphones.
Well, explain it. The BBC had a department called redundant stores.
Yeah.
There's this guy Chris was in charge of it, and I don't know how Edwyn fostered these relationships, but he was really good at that as well. He knew loads of old boffins and sales guys, you know, guys that were dealers and had designed equipment back.
No, I'm sure eBay's good, but
you had guys
for example, the redundant stores.
So they basically had all the old stuff that
I looked on the internet and sought everything out the microphones.
I'm saying Chris was in charge of getting all the stuff that the BBC deemed to be redundant, right? And he would phone Edwyn up and go, I've got something. I think I've got something might interest you, Edwyn.
Sounds like a in there, Grace.
You were like that.
Don't need to get
but Edwyn got the chance to get lots of buy lots of things off the BBC redundant department. As he says, that doesn't exist anymore. They wised up.
Cotton Dawn.
But you used to go to guys that had like rag and bone yards, but big mass. Remember that guy in Leeds we went to? The biggest scrap yard I've ever been in my life.
Yeah.
And this guy knew everything about recording equipment, didn't he, as well? But he also had he got loads of stuff from the MOD and stuff like that. And it was just, what a place.
I know.
Where there's muck, there's brass, I'm telling you. You know, it was really good, isn't it? It was really, really good. So he was not that combined with I mean, he even had a guy in Eastern Europe, East Germany, who was his Neumann microphone connection. He had connections, you know, he had connections all over the place, and he used to get along with these people really, really well. So they would always give Edwyn first dibs at things, you know.
Are you still shopping for these just now, or are you quite happy with your studio setup?
Bone of contention, Derek. Bone of contention you hit upon there.
I'm not going to mention that. You have to rein it in.
Of course he is. I have to stop him. first of all, you would admit the bargains are not everybody's wised up.
No.
And he likes a bargain, but also it's just too much. The stuff we've got is in the studio up there. There's a storage building behind it for the overflow. I mean, see, getting it up here, it was transferring that studio in London, which had turned into a sort of form of
junkyard.
Step-toes junkyard.
Grace is calling that, but vintage microphones. And
vintage everything, piles of it everywhere. But
I like to call it.
But we got it. It was a nightmare, but
it's not just right. You know, you're taking it from one end of the country to the other almost. It was relays of it. There was convoys of vans going up with it. It's just, oh my God. Anyway, he nowadays when Edwyn's on eBay for stuff, I'll go, right, it's not just recording equipment, by the way, it's other stuff, and I'll go, like, if you even bought 3 things a week on eBay that you'll keep forever, which he does. Sure. He's never sold a thing on eBay ever. No. He never sells ever. No. Not one thing on eBay.
I can't. You could sell after my stop and before my stop.
He's just a buyer.
Yeah.
And I said to him, so that's 3 things a week, 52 weeks in a year, so roughly 150 things, new things every year. I said, that means in the next 10 years we'll have another 1,500 things. And I'm like, I can't take it. Minimalist.
You have to start selling some of the microphones, Edwyn.
What?
You're going to have to start selling some of the microphones this time.
No.
You'll never do that. You'll never do that. You'll never ever do that. That's never going to happen. So that's just, he's a
hoarder.
He's a hoarder. Don't get me wrong, it's good stuff he hoards, but it's not happening. He's just going to sit in. I was saying to Susan that works with me, I was going to think this is when we were trying to leave the studio, and it was such a horrible months it took us to get out of there. Yeah. Such a horrible job, and I was getting really angry with Edwyn. I'd just go mental. I'd be just cursing and swearing up and down the corridor and just losing it with all this stuff. And I was going, where the hell do you think we're all going to die? We're all going to die. And then what's going to happen with all this stuff? We're going to leave it. Our poor son's going to have to deal with it all. You know what I mean? And Susan goes, well, maybe we could just. She goes, maybe we could just make him a big sort of sarcophagus like Tutankhamun and put it on with him.
That's terrible. Oh no.
I don't know. Anyway.
Do you know what I wanted to ask you about? Did you go down to the exhibition in Edinburgh, the Rip It Up exhibition? No. I thought that was amazing that it was named after, one of your songs in the book that Vic Galloway wrote off the back of that as well. It must have been a bit of an honour.
Yeah, but Grace didn't like it.
No? Oh dear, sorry.
No, it's not that as much.
No, admit it, Grace. You didn't.
Yeah, we didn't really get involved with it, to be honest. It's not really my cup of tea. I think it's just, I don't know, I questioned the artistic merit of it. I think it's just a grab bag of
shit.
I think, okay, this is, and they go, oh, can we get, what we'd like is if you get some handwritten lyrics, and maybe we could borrow Edwyn's Gretsch guitar, and I was going, and put it next to Midgear's trench coat, and
sure.
You get my drift?
Oh yeah, I get where it comes from. So what's the relevance almost? Why put them together?
Yeah.
I don't know
what the Zillows next to Alex Harvey band, or I don't know. I don't get it. I didn't really. They're all Scottish, you see. They're just all Scottish. And I said, in and of itself, I didn't see that as a basis.
Did they have to get your permission to choose that name? Or
no, of course not. No, not at all. We were allowed to do that. We didn't argue with them about that either. We weren't being miserable about it, but it just wasn't for us. I just thought it was a bit naff.
I wish I hadn't asked. I thought he'd been, oh, that's great. I really enjoyed it.
I don't know. We're talking about Harry Papadopoulos, for instance, there.
Yes.
Now, Harry's been ill these last 15, nearly 20 years, not been very well.
Yeah, he had a stroke like me.
Different results, though.
Yeah.
But a guy that used to be in a group called the Bluebells.
Yep.
Hodgie.
I think the last gig I went to, the Bluebells were supporting you, Edwyn. The last Edwyn Collins gig I went to at ABC.
Yeah.
Oh, was that in ABC?
ABC. It must have been about 5 or 6 years ago now, I think.
Yeah. So Ken is from
10 years ago.
Ken's is it Bothwell? Ken's from Ireland.
Yeah, he's a nice guy. Yeah.
He went round to see, this is a number of years ago, he went round to see Harry and discovered that he was sitting, as another hoarder does, on his incredible archive that he's got of photographs that he took. It's not particularly Scottish groups, although he did take, not particularly, because he worked for music papers and he went all
for example, the Rolling Stones.
Gil Scott Heron, great pictures of him. Anyway, he's got his archive of, but there is quite a few Scottish things in there as well. And
the birthday party.
And his amazing archive of pictures that he took between the years of 77 to about 83. That was it, just that 6-year period. And Ken just thought, my God, Harry's pictures are all deteriorating, his negs are going to deteriorate and everything. So in cahoots with a really good Glasgow gallery called Street Level, they digitised Harry's archive. And people at Street Level were brilliant and thought they should do an exhibition of his stuff. Now, the guy there's told me that it was the most, come on, sit in the popular.
Is that in at the Trongate? Street Level? Yeah, I know. Yeah.
That it had the most footfall of any exhibition they'd ever had. It was because of the subject matter and the style of them and the subject matter.
Stiff, Grace.
Right, what you want to do? You want a different? Do you want a different seat? Do you want to sit in that chair?
No.
Are you okay?
Yeah.
He's complaining of stiffness, so that's why he's in the picture. But, So when I went to see that, I thought that this has artistic merit and relevance.
Yeah.
It's a snapshot of a time. There's quite a strong flavour of Scotland in it as well, about this guy coming from a Glasgow background, this Glasgow photographer, and his take on that period of time, punk rock and post-punk, and the contribution that Glasgow made to that period. And all of that made sense to me artistically. And people got it because it's obvious. It's right, it's obvious. That exhibition in Edinburgh, like I say, to me, it was just a grab bag. We've got to really put a wee bit more effort into it than that,
Edwyn, I won't keep you too long if you're getting stiff, but what have you got planned for the future then? Have you got any bands coming up to the Highlands to record with you? Or?
Yeah, but once the coronavirus is gone, but it's over in the Highlands of Scotland.
We've not had any problems, but we're allowed to have somebody here open up again, all being well.
Yeah.
We're hopefully going to be able to record again towards the end of this month.
Yeah.
Good.
And there's a band coming in.
Yeah, and called Neon Waltz.
Neon Waltz.
Oh, yeah, no, that's right. Yeah,
yeah.
Brilliant band, yeah, really good.
Aren't they brilliant?
Oh, yeah.
Aren't they? And they're
Georgian.
They're from They're from Caithness.
Yeah.
From Caithness, and in actual fact, I think the original long-term bass player has recently stepped back. He's got a family and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And he's been the new recruits from East Kilbride.
Yeah. Jack.
Is he the new guy?
Yeah. Jack, he's called.
So they're going to be coming to do some recording here towards the end of month.
Brilliant.
And Will and Jake are coming back up to get the studio organised in advance of that.
Yeah.
Jake's an engineer that works with us here a lot, and so they're coming, and there's various others that we've got in the pipeline.
Who's that?
Hanging Stars, Patrick's band.
Oh yeah.
And possibly a crowd that we've worked with a lot called the Hooten Tennis Club.
Right.
Well, there's another band that's a couple of them are involved with called Seabells.
Liverpool.
We hope they'll be coming back
Yeah.
for too long.
Yeah.
So we'll be back to work. Yeah.
Fingers crossed it's not too long until everything's back up and running.
And Edwyn is actually gonna. He had a record out last year, and he toured again.
Yeah.
I feel as if we're gonna go for that stuff, Edwyn, don't you?
Not at all.
Not for me, Grace.
He was going to be, before all this happened, he was going to be playing at the Kelvin Grove Bandstand.
That's right, yeah. Has it been rescheduled or?
Yeah.
Next year.
Brilliant. Good.
Sold out.
Sold out, Edwyn, you bragging?
Yes.
I was going to say I'll need to come along, but I'll not be able to get in anymore.
Oh, we'll get you in a guest list.
Yeah,
don't worry about that.
No, don't worry about that.
I'll hold you to that. Brilliant. No, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. I could have spoke all afternoon to you. You get some amazing stories, and thanks so much for your